Hello, all, and welcome to the Fantasy and Sci-Fi Fanatics podcast. I'm your host, Daniel Coolbaugh. Today, I have me a very special guest, Sarah Arnew. Sarah, how are you doing today?
Hello. I'm doing really well, thank you, apart from the fact that I've lost the ability to speak just as we started.
Well, if it makes you feel any better, Sarah, I have done my intro like I don't even know how many times at this point. And I literally like yes or 2 days ago was doing my like second or third interview of the day. And for some reason, yeah, I just could not do it. So luckily it was with a returning guest, and they helped me out. So I totally understand that. But thank you so much for coming on today. I can't wait, to talk today about, your journey and, your writing and some of your products, and of course anthology news as well is always fun. So thank you so much for coming on and chatting with us today. We all really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. I'm really
Not a
excited.
problem. Anytime, anytime. Well, we'll start right there, Sarah, with that first question. What has your writing journey been like up until this point?
I mean, I've been writing since I was a kid. I actually got in trouble in primary school, so I would have been probably about 8 years old. And we in the UK, a lot of our buildings are quite old. They've got quite old drainage systems, and I wrote a story about monsters living in the drainage system
Oh,
in the
that's cool.
toilets.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
then it was like a little underground publishing operation, and I wrote different copies out, and they would get distributed over the year. And then some people started to get upset by it, and so, so I was told off for that, and so that was like kind of where it started. And then I took a big gap after university. I wrote some film scripts for a bit that I never did anything with, and then a couple of years ago, I got into publishing some smaller pieces, like quite a lot of short stories, flash fiction,
Cool.
before coming to novella writing. So it's been a long journey, but it's been good.
That's awesome. I have to say, real quick, before we get going with subset questions, I would totally read that story, by the way. I'm a school teacher, so that just sounds like really, really
I
cool.
found it like recently,
Oh,
and I
that's
was like, "This
awesome.
is terrible. It's absolutely awful. Why was anyone scared over this?" Like,
Oh, they were scared of it. Okay. Yeah, yeah,
yeah, I
yeah.
might
Interesting.
rewrite it at some point, like a little
Oh, I,
children's story or something. But
I think that's a brilliant idea personally. I think like that's like totally something that would I would be interested in reading for sure. So that sounds amazing. Well, you said screenplays, so I just have to ask, as somebody whose first thing they actually wrote was it almost got published, guys. I was stupid. I was 17. Wish I could go back in time. I thought I knew everything. Sold the screenplay and then did not accept it. So that was the dumbest decision. When people ask what dumb decision when you go back in time and change, I would change that because I would have gotten paid and gotten a credit. But then I probably would have thought I knew more than I thought I already knew. But I really enjoyed writing screenplays after that. So I'm just curious, like, what were some of the genres or maybe some of the things you wrote about in terms of your screenplays?
well, a lot of my screenplays, a lot of my work is all like horror based, like fundamentally or speculative. And so it was all pretty much like horror and quite a lot of like dynastic stuff, family stuff. But also, I wrote this one screenplay about I was hyper focused on Queen Victoria for a while,
Mm, I get
quite a
that.
long while, and I wrote this screenplay about the genetic illness that ran in her family, and it being like like a demon being a manifestation of the genetic spectre that hung over.
Oh, that's cool.
And I really liked that screenplay, and I never really knew what to do with screenplays, so I just sort of dropped them. And but I might rework that one into a novel at some point, I think.
Yeah,
It's got
yeah.
good bones. I'm actually getting back into screenplay writing, ironically, but it's all very cyclical with me. I come back to things, and I don't know
I
why.
get that. I'm a binger, so I binge watch, I binge read, I binge eat. I've been better about binge eating, guys. I promise. Not this past week, but in general, I've been better. But yeah, I binge work out, like I binge everything. So I binge write a lot too, which is not and read, which is I'm trying to get used to not doing. But yeah, like sometimes I'll do that where I'm like, I'm gonna do all sword and sorcery, and I'm gonna do all this. So now I've like been like, no, I'm gonna like just do a few things at a time. But it's
I
taken
just
me
get
a while.
focused, and then I
Yeah.
can't physically move away from the document. I had that last year when I was writing the first draft for a book for my MA, and I did not leave the computer for about a week. I was like
Oh,
barely
wow.
sleeping. And it got to a point that my course is online. So I'd be in the Zoom session, I'd just be like this, and they were like, Sarah, we can see you. Like,
That's awesome. That's clearly a story that needs to be told, though, right? So that's kind of cool.
I mean, I hope so. I hope they like it.
Yeah, yeah. I hope that you use it at some point where like an author, right, is writing a story or, a screenwriter is writing a screenplay and they just like can't stop and like, it starts to have negative effects on their life and psyche. There is a great story right there.
It
That'd be
feels like a
awesome.
possession story, doesn't it?
It really does at times. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. My friend talks about that a lot for that's how he feels when he gets done with a book because he feels like it's like almost like a physical experience and then once he's done, it's just like he can relax and kind of let go for a bit. So, I hope to have that type of psyche one day in the
It'll come
grind.
across,
Yeah,
maybe.
yeah, yeah. That's fair. Now, I know we talked about horror, but are there specific subgenres of horror that you really like, or are there other genres that you're currently writing in, or you want to write in the future?
It's so bizarre because I feel like horror is one of those genres that has so many subgenres,
Really
and
does, yeah.
there's so much you can do. It's so diverse, and I find myself writing things that I don't expect to write. So when I first came to like sort of self-publishing and like working with indie presses, I wrote a gothic horror. And I really enjoyed my gothic horror, and I was like, yeah, that's kind of what I'm going to sort of specialize in. And then after a lot of like tumultuous health stuff, I ended up in sort of psychological body horror, and then which I didn't expect, but which I'll probably end up going back to because it's so easy to draw from my own experience. And then I wrote I mean, my friend lovingly referred to it as a creature feature,
Oh, that's cool.
but, which was the hardest thing I've ever written. I don't know. I seem to sort of like jump all over the place. I wrote an epistolary novella recently, and I loved that. So I might try and jump back to that at some point.
I totally get it though, because like horror is like because like I have horror authors on at times, but then I have other horror authors that are like, well, you had so and so. I'm like, yeah, I'm like a PG-13 podcast and like family friendly because I'm a teacher and a lot of my students like watch and stuff, and sometimes they like watch with their parents and stuff. So I had a couple of authors like who were like, hey, can I get interviewed? And I was like, yeah, let me check out your stuff. And I was like, ooh, this is not what I do. But then I could totally see, right, where they're like, well, you haven't had horror, authors on. But I've had, horror authors that I think kind of, yeah, like kind of fit some of the subgenres and, things like that. Or just, I don't know. Like I typically really enjoy like The Woman in Black with Daniel Radcliffe. I'm totally blanking on the director. Like that's like my kind of horror. But I like a lot of different stuff. But yeah, like there's just some stuff like with a couple authors. I'm like, I just can't. Like I'm really sorry. Because that was like all they wrote was like particular stuff. And yeah, so I could definitely see it's been one of the harder genres for me to break into for the podcast. I've had like Nicholas LaRue and some other people on, so I'm hoping that with talking with Saffron and talking with you, hopefully we can kind of expand the understanding of maybe the horror genre for some of our also other guests and some of our like readers and watchers too so that way they can kind of find authors that they really might like within the horror genre. So
And
yeah,
I
I think
think it's also like important to say that if you think something's going to be triggering, like you don't have to read it, you don't have to
yep,
engage with it as well. And
yep,
I think that, I think sometimes when people want to support people, they'll do it in a way, and it can be detrimental to like their own mental health, their own
yeah,
well-being. And
yeah,
a book isn't worth it, like a film isn't worth it. And there are other ways you can support people, even if that means you can't read the book.
yeah, yeah,
One of
sure.
my beta readers got back to me when I can't get through cat food. I can't get through the first chapter, and I was like, "That's completely fine." It was like, "But I'll support you in other ways." I was like, "Yeah, great." Like, I don't want you to be. I don't want you to put yourself in a bad position because of a book. It's not
Yeah,
worth
yeah.
it.
Yeah, I had a friend who was reading my urban fantasy, like prequel, like trilogy and stuff, and like my character in he's like actually a Marine at the time, so it's hard for my friend being a veteran. And then I told him I was like, he's gonna go through some stuff that you went through that might be really triggering and stuff. And he got to a certain point. He's like, he goes, it's fabulous writing, but I can't. I'm like, nope, totally get it. I'm like, yeah, I totally understand. So he's been super awesome. Found me some people, to beta read and stuff like that. But yeah, I totally get it. I'm like, I always tell people follows are free, like shares are free, stuff like that. So yeah, I think you're onto a great point there. There's other ways, yeah, too. And there's like sometimes, like even with like like grim dark or some epic fantasy and stuff, where there's authors where I'm like, there's just certain context, right, or certain things that they write about, yeah, where I'm like, I just can't, but I'll still support them, yeah, in other ways. So I totally agree. Mental health, I think, is a really important one to remember. So if something is detrimental to yours, I think it's good to, yeah, really think about that in terms of media. So
I'm not a massive fantasy reader. I wish I was. It's not a genre that necessarily aligns with me. I don't- wish I could write it as well, but I mean, I have some authors and I've read their books and they're fantastic. And I'm like, listen, I don't read fantasy very often, and I know neither do you, but I would buy this book. And, like sometimes
yeah,
word of, even you like, I wouldn't read this, but like you should because you will like it is just as important.
yeah. No, I totally agree. Such a great point. Now, moving on here just a little bit, really excited about talking about your current works. So, can you tell us some of your most recent works and how you come up with the ideas that you want to write? Let's do this thing.
My three books. Oh, I'm so happy with them. This one, I'm doing a reading on Sunday, the
Oh,
Sunday
cool. Where's that
after
at?
we're recording this. So I that's what I'm reading. So this one, Mrs. Liberis. No one can say it, because I was really clever. I gave it a Latin title.
Oh, that's
Uh,
smart.
this is a gothic horror. Came out in 2014, and Queen Victoria makes an appearance because I am hyperfixated on her. I think she's fascinating. But it's about two families who, over the course of a year, they systematically destroy each other. It's quite triggering. So this one, I always try and tell people up front, hypochondria. So I serialized this one last year, and then oh no, and then I just lost my reading. I serialized it last year, and then I put it as an ebook and then a physical book this year. So now you can read the entire thing in one go. And this is a medicalized psychological mind and body horror.
Mm,
He was diagnosed with hypermobility spectrum disorder last year, and it was quite a difficult diagnosis to come to terms with. So I wrote myself some therapy. You can just go to therapy, it turns out. And then this one, cat food, is what my friend calls my creature feature, and it's from a cat's perspective. It's quite brutal, it's quite graphic, and it's about domestic violence and what do you do when home isn't safe anymore.
mm. Interesting. Well, we got a lot to unpack here, I think.
Yeah,
So, can we start maybe thinking with like your gothic horror, like so you're fixated on Queen Victoria, which I totally get, by the way. Like she's
it
definitely,
was
uh,
fascinating, but
yeah. Like there's a
awful.
book that we're trying to teach right now, like with like someone just wrote a book about her, and my one of my co-teachers was like, I am obsessed, and I'm like, that would be it would be a really cool one, and I'm blanking on the author, but she sent it to me, so I'm like, I would totally read that with the kids and stuff, and it gives a very different perspective, I think, on history from her vantage point and stuff. So I totally get that. But were there, like, but speaking of her too, like, were you just kind of doing some research? Like, how did that story for you like come about? Did you like
So
see something on her and then think, oh, I'm gonna start here? Like, yeah, how did that happen?
unfortunately, I've been hyperfixated on her for a very, very long time. So it got to a point with the story. It wasn't like it was built around her necessarily. It just got to a point in a draft, and I was like, this isn't working, and I don't know why it isn't working, and I'm so frustrated. And then I was like, it's because I need an outside influence, and unfortunately for me, the outside influence is the nightmare woman, Queen Victoria. Um, she did some good things, she did some bad things. I'm not going to get into it because I will just go. But I've been very influenced by Edgar Allan Poe and very much by Mike Flanagan. And
Yeah.
I was watching, and I always get it wrong because I try to keep call it the haunting of the house of Usher, and it's not the fall of the house of Usher. I don't know why there are so many words in the title, but I was watching that. I was so influenced by the idea of like a dynastic story, and I wanted to write something like that. And sort of, I have a whole notebook full of ideas, and sometimes one of them will sort of grab me at that time, and I was like, oh, okay, I can take this idea, and this is what I put together. Um, and it did need the influence of Queen Victoria being in there, just meddling around in people's business, to sort of push it a bit. So I call that one my Mike Flanagan inspired book.
Oh, that's cool. I love Mike Flanagan. Love Edgar Allan Poe. Like I used to teach English, so I love teaching my horror unit on Edgar Allan Poe, and we likened him to like R.L. Stein. Not just like Goosebumps, but he had some like later stuff that was like really like young, like really young adults. So a lot of my kids, my students really enjoyed like the parallels, and it was exciting to get them into someone like Edgar Allan Poe. And just to, a lot of them yeah, like didn't realize that they might actually like the horror genre, but like in terms of reading. So I think that's those are two really great inspirations there. So that's awesome.
I think he's also one of those authors who's so ingrained into popular culture, but you don't necessarily know as well because
That's
he's
a
been
good point.
so many times.
Yep.
And it's like people, the amount of times I've heard people quote a little bit of The Raven, and they think that they're like, oh, I've heard this new thing. It's like that's not a new thing. That's been around for that's Edgar Allan Poe, you know. It's like when the more recent Hunger Games one came out and people were
Mm.
talking about Lenore and like the
Oh,
fact
yeah.
the name Lenore had been picked, and they were
Yep.
like, "Wow, that's such an interesting, unique name." And that, why does it seem so sad? It's like because of Edgar Allan Poe. Like,
And this is why I've been teaching it, guys.
yeah,
Yeah, I reference kids all the time. Yeah, we're trying to do better because now I'm teaching social studies the last couple of years. So like, the English teacher and I are really trying to combine some of those, like early historical elements for like early Western civilization and really just like early civilization and history to combine some of those like themes and then I'm gonna kind of hopefully meet her and the English classes for like why are people afraid of certain things and like why was the horror genre written in the way it was, that kind of thing. And some of my kids are like, we need to read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. I was like, we really do. I was like, if you have not, it's like people ask like what are your most influential books. I'm like that's definitely one of my top 10 of all time. So but that's super cool. Now I'm gonna try to go on to your next one here and start talking about the some of the the body horror stuff and that kind of thing. I totally get it because like I had a really bad bout of being sick several years ago, and then seemed like I just came out of it, and then started having really bad headaches and stuff. And then I had this really bad episode, and then I went to the hospital and stuff. Kind of felt like I was having a heart attack, but it was wild because I was in really good health. And they're like, "Oh, you have like this Graves' disease and like overactive thyroid," and I was like, "Oh, okay." I was not expecting. Oh, really? That's crazy. Oh, yeah. I was not expecting to like the road to recovery and like having to relearn my body and stuff. So that's probably where some things have hit me a little bit more when I read them and stuff. So if it's anything involving, yeah, like the body or the mind, oh man, like lately, it absolutely terrifies me. I think now it's like a new thing. So, but I'm curious at like how you kind of, pulled some of your experiences into this book for hypochondria and like what can kind of readers expect if they're as terrified of me of that kind of thing.
so when I was diagnosed, I kept saying to people, I really hope that they know what it is and that they and I had so many weird symptoms for so many different things, and I developed arthritis very young. I was 24 when I was diagnosed. I was like 18 when I got diagnosed with my thyroid issues. And I've always had so many weird little things like that when you have them in isolation, it doesn't seem like it makes sense. Like it's a big thing, but when you put them all together, it's like, why am I so like sick all the time? And I kept saying, I hope it's just something that and they know what it is. It's one thing that connects all of it, and then they can fix me. And it was one thing that was all the things, but they can't fix me at all. And I had to sit in the hospital with the doctor, and he was looking at me, and the doctor was genuinely really upset as well. And I imagine this takes a toll on the people who have to have that conversation.
Yeah.
He's like, I'm so sorry, there is nothing we can do for you. You are just going to be like this for the rest of your life. And that's a very hard thing to hear. I had to relearn how to walk properly because I wasn't doing that properly, apparently. I had to relearn how to stand. I'm in physical therapy. I've been in chronic pain since I was 24, basically. And it takes a toll. And it means that ever since I was a kid, I've been having symptoms since I was a kid, and I wasn't aware of it. And it was always like, I know something's wrong, and I can't express that how I know something's wrong. I just know it. And the amount of people who brush you off, the amount of people like, it's in your head, it's in your head, you're making it up. And I just took all of that emotion for the last like 18 years and crafted it into this story. And it was genuinely like I couldn't stop. It was like I had to get it all out. It was written in a very not rushed period, but like I had
Kind of
to
like
get
a
it
fugue
all
state.
out. Very intense
Yeah, yeah.
month of just drafting and reading and drafting and reading. And then I put it down and I was like, right, now that's done and we don't ever have to talk about it again. And then I got my official diagnosis and I was like, all right, maybe I have to exercise the demon and release it. And the amount of people who've read Hypochondria and been like, that was harrowing and that's awful and I'm so sorry and I can't believe you feel like that all the time. But I feel like that as well, and it was so nice to be seen. I do think, although it's very difficult, it has got a couple of scenes that are quite like graphic. Somebody did tell me they nearly fainted after reading one of the
Oh,
scenes,
wow.
and I was like, I'm sorry. Next time, sit down while you're reading. Uh, the amount of people who've been to me, who've spoken to me or written reviews and been like, I completely understand this and I completely get it. And it was so nice to be going through this with the character of Emma, but to know that I wasn't alone in it is really nice. And I think Emma's story's done, but I do want to go back to like medicalized horror. I think there's so much to talk about. I really want to get into the depths of like dealing with how I how I perceive sort of myself and my body, and also talking about like the systemic issues going on in the health services. Because as much as I love the NHS, I think it's a fantastic service. It is also not fit for purpose, and I think that should be discussed as well.
Yeah, I totally get that. Years ago, my grandmother, when I can't remember, she had surgery or something a couple years, like probably 2 years before she passed away. But we were at a hospital and it was like new. It was supposed to be new, and it was like the weirdest experience. And I was in a course, like an English course, like for creative writing, and just for like undergrad and stuff, and they were like, oh, like write a story, like something that like freaked you out. And so my poor grandmother was in this like almost brand new hospital, and like half of it was still being done. So if you go out of her room to the right, like it's like a normal hallway, but if you go to the left, like the whole hospital wasn't done yet. And it was just like, she was like, I just don't want to stay here, like I don't want to stay here by myself and stuff, you know. And there was just so many different things like that where I'm just like, it was just very, very systemic, I think, where I was living in particular, at the time, my home state. And it was like, it definitely didn't help people who were already having certain situations, right? Or having to undergo getting well or being sick. So it's almost like that's almost psychological, you know, in itself. So I think there's a lot there that, you know, a lot of people, like you said, could relate to, you know, in terms of, you know, story or that type of, you know, element of the genre. So
I mean, as a chronically ill person myself, I do anything to avoid the hospital.
I don't blame you.
I
I don't blame
I
you.
I very luckily never been hospitalized, and the amount of times I've dislocated something and people are like, "Well, phone an ambulance." I'm like, "No, I'm not going.
Ugh,
I will
yeah.
put this back in place myself." They don't like it, but
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No,
I'm going to do it.
I totally get that. The dentist was ruined for me the last 3 times I went. I like had such a bad case. They were like trying to take something out, and then I was supposed to come back the next week, and it was like over a long weekend, and my whole face blew up, and it was like then I went in and they took it out, and I was like, oh, thank goodness. Then they have to get rid of the infection, guys. Oh my gosh. So I have to go back to get teeth cleaned and stuff, and I am like been mentally preparing myself for 6 months because I just like do not want to go. So I totally get it. Like right now that's like my biggest like fear, I guess, is having to go get my teeth cleaned. So
When I was a kid, I had some teeth out. What I didn't know at the time, because no one knew about hypermobility. If you're hypermobile, a lot of the time you have a very lessened effect on, like you don't feel anesthetic and stuff as much. So I was put down, and I was like 8 at the time. So I was in the chair, and they gave me the injection, and I was like, it doesn't work, I can still feel it. And they were like, no, give it a couple minutes and it'll work. And I was like, it's still not working. And they were like, no, I think it probably is, and you just don't, you're just really scared. And then they pulled my tooth out, and I was like, and I could feel everything, and I was screaming, and they were like, oh, maybe she can feel it. Weirdly, maybe she can. So they ended up giving me like another dosage, and my dad was like, so you're just like, like, was there anything in that syringe? Are you just ripping kids' teeth out?
it's crazy.
And it stuck
That's
with me
terrifying.
for like 20 years. I'm not even joking. I really struggled to go to the dentist today. Like
I don't blame
last time
you.
I went, they literally had to hold me down.
Maybe that's what I'll suggest. I'll say calling ahead for Dan and holding me down, cleaning my teeth.
I'll be like, just hit me over the head with something and then leave me on the floor somewhere. I'll wake up.
It's crazy. I had two infections before that, like in two different spots, but it was wild because for mine it was like the guy just like literally like just examined, right? Didn't really do anything, and for some reason my tooth, yeah,
Oh my
just did
God.
not like it that day. So
Oh,
yeah,
that's
yeah, I
terrifying.
totally get
I don't have to book anytime soon.
it. That's
Leaving all
awesome.
my dental trauma on the internet.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I think a lot of people are probably going to comment and be like, been there. My old principal was like that. He was like, he had all these things he had to do, and he goes, do them all in one sitting. Like, I think he had like 5 cavities filled, like 3 root canals, like 1 tooth removed. I mean, he was like, I just want to be done in one day, because that was like his biggest fear. So I totally get it. Everybody's got their thing. Yeah,
Makes
yeah.
sense. Do that.
Now, when you're talking creature feature, that is totally my type of thing because I that's how I grew up. Like my grandpa, like on AMC or Turner Classic Movies, they would do all of the creature features. If it was like a newer movie, it was like an R movie or something like that, they would do like the TV version. So we did a lot of creature features. Like I absolutely like. I think I'll never not love them more than anything. Nothing could ever compare. So I'm just curious, like, were there some in particular, that really influenced you, or were there other stories or media that kind of influenced you, in terms of your story? Like,
With cat food, I think the biggest inspiration was that movie that came out last year called Good Boy, where the one that is set from the dog's perspective.
oh, I didn't see that. I heard it was pretty crazy.
It's quite good. I really
Okay,
enjoy it. I've watched it a couple
I'll
times
check it
now.
out.
And I was like, that's such an interesting perspective. And then I was like, well, I want to write something like that. So I'm a very big cat person. I've always had cats since I was growing up. I've got two beautiful cats at the minute called Phoebe and Einstein. And people, not to give anyone a bad rap, it's particularly dog people who are like, oh, cats don't love you. The cats would never do anything for you, and that is a bold-faced lie. My cats, I know my cats love me, and I was like, right, I'm going to write a book about cats who love their owner, and that's what cat food is. It's about three cats who love their owner, and they decide they're going to save him from his abusive boyfriend. It's a hard read. Um, it is quite graphic. It's more graphic than anything I've written, which, considering some of the stuff in hypochondria, it's quite funny. Um, and it was really difficult to write, actually. I don't know why it got me as much because I have such a personal connection with hypochondria, and I don't to the same degree with cat food, but I really struggled with it. Um, but I'm really glad that it's written. I'm really glad that it is out there. And people really like it, which is nice. It does seem to be people either really like it though, or they absolutely hate it. It's my Marmite book.
That's awesome. Yeah, I saw some of your reviews. I was like, wow, this sounds really, really interesting. So, yeah, I think that's super cool. I always find it interesting how, and it's for any genre, right? Not just horror, but like any genre, like how, and I talk to authors a lot about this, like it's really nice to see how people, like we talked earlier, could be in the horror genre but write such different things, right? And like your creature feature might be totally different than someone else's, but it's just interesting, I think, to be able to look at the different flavors, if you will, or different spices, within different genres. I think personally that's what makes writing really fun, and it's also what makes reading really fun. I had a friend hand me an epic fantasy recently, and I was like, this is just not my thing. But then handed me something else. I was like, yeah, here we go. But like, on paper and from reviews and blurbs and things, it's like, I should have loved that book, but it just didn't hit me, right? Or whatever. But it's always nice because there's always something else that will. So, and I think it's interesting to be able to see so many authors write in a genre or a subgenre, and, even with tropes or, different characters and things, write so differently. That's why, like, there's so many movies that come out. Like, my brother and I both are horror fans, but like, he'll watch anything. He'll watch anything. Me, I want like more supernatural stuff or creature features or something like that. More ghosts and things. He's like way more into like he just loves everything. My sister-in-law too, his wife. And they're just so funny. But yeah, like my mom's like, you guys are so different with your the type of horror you like and stuff. And I was like, well, I think that's because we had different experiences growing up with different media, within the genre and stuff like that. And there's certain things that I just love, and there's certain things that he just loves. But yeah, I think that's what makes books really, and media just really fun in general. So I think that's super, super cool, the take that you had on it. So I can't wait to read it because I think it was, I'm trying to remember whose review in particular like really got me. I was like, I gotta check this out. Like, I can't remember if it was like Ellen Holmes or who it was, but yeah, it was on your website. I was like, oh, it was really intriguing. So
Thought it was gonna be like the one that just says I'm hungry.
I was wondering about that. That got me curious. I think that one's above, right? And then
Yeah.
and then I get down to the last couple. I was like, I gotta check this out. So I think that's really cool. Well, speaking of stories, how did you come to write in the Rings of Adventure Anthology, and what is your story about?
I don't even know how I came to writing it. I just kind of like appeared in the Discord one day. I got a message from Mike Molman, and I was like, he was like, "Hey, do you want to write a story?" And I was like, "Yeah, cool." And he went, "Great, it's 5,000 words and it's about Rins. Join this Discord." And I was like, "What?" I turn up and like everyone, I was like, "Oh, what? Tim McKay's here and like Ellen Holmes," and I was like, "Why am I
It's a good
here?"
group, yeah.
I was like, "I feel like I've muscled my way into somewhere I'm not supposed to be, but I've done it now and it's too late."
Yeah.
I've got
That's
written a
awesome.
story called Skylark, and it's about a private investigator called Sarson, and he has just moved to Aberdeen. He has quite a troubled backstory, and he gets obsessed with this graffiti of two rings that look like an infinity symbol, and decides, alongside his homeless best friend Rab, that he is going to investigate that. So the story definitely took a turn. It didn't have the ending it did have at one point, but I don't know. I'm quite happy with it. Like,
That's cool. Sounds awesome. I was like shocked when I read Saffron's. I was like, oh, like I think it's so cool. I've read a few others to see where like everybody, kind of took the theme differently, which I think is like super, super cool. So
it's been really exciting to see how they all go and how
yeah,
like everyone's interpreted different things. Because it's not even just like genre dependent as well.
yeah,
Like a
yep.
lot of people have interpreted it in such interesting ways.
Yep. I interviewed Matthew Gill the other day, so that's why I'm trying to also figure out like where I could put him a little bit earlier in my seasons, like a bonus episode and stuff. So that way, it's like comes out like either right before or like right during launch date, which is September 1st for everybody out there. You can check out the link down in the description. But he took it as like, for sci-fi, he took it like military sci-fi totally different. And I was like, oh, it's so cool. So I don't want to give that away. You guys should check out our interview. But yeah, it is so interesting to see how, and that was one thing, like I was like really slammed because we had just talked, Ben Shankman and I, about doing our own, like literally the week before, like I interviewed Roe, and then he invited me and Ben, and so like the first round of people or whatever, like the first 30 people, and it was just so interesting because I was like, I don't think I have time. And then and then Ben messages me like the next day or later that night and goes, yeah, I'm doing this. I'm like, what? So the peer pressure caught in, and then I saw like four other people that I knew that I was like, oh dang. And then I actually looked at the email list. So I emailed Ro right back. I said, actually, I think I can do a story for you. Like, I think I can fit it in. And it was difficult with the end of the school year and stuff at both stories, but I'm really glad because, yeah, when you guys see the list of authors on our pre launch page, you're going to be like, holy crap. And yeah, the story, I think I've read 3 stories so far, and each one has been absolutely amazing. So, Ben Shankman helped me with mine, so mine's pretty good. Probably not the best, but Ben did a really good job. So I can't wait for Roa to help me edit it. But it is interesting to see everybody's different perspectives. So I think it's super super cool to see what different people do. Did you go with that trope because you knew I was gonna love it with like the investigation and stuff? I love the noir stuff. Like I just think like the mystery elements with horror are just amazing.
I just had this character in my head and he's been bouncing around for a little while. And I was like, right, I've got to find the right thing for you. Sometimes that happens. Sometimes I get the character first, or sometimes I get the plot first. And I was like, and I don't know how I managed it, but I realized that I got myself into like 4 anthologies at the same time,
Oh wow, well, that's
including
awesome.
my own one. I was doing one within my uni cohort,
Oh, cool.
which I've literally just released to put on my website from Bristol to Gothenburg, and I and I had this character, and I was like, "You don't fit anywhere. What am I going to do with you?" And then I was like, "No, wait. Mike Bowman's messaged me. He needs a story." And then the rest of it came from like a stupid little thing my mum said. Um, she also works at a school, and she like made this comment, and I was like, "Oh wait, I've got something here." And I haven't even used the line that she said. I've actually forgotten what she specifically said. I just took the germ of it, and then
Yeah, yeah.
and now there's a story. Like, I
Oh, that's
really
cool.
like those characters, though. I might have to do a prequel of them.
Oh, that's cool. That's super awesome. I had one of my students for our Arcade Awakenings anthology, and he goes, so we were like done with his state testing, and we like had like an hour and a half before he could leave. So I was like reading, and he didn't have anything because you can't have anything in the test with you. So we started talking about stuff, and I was like, yeah. He's like, yeah. What are you working on? And I was like, oh, I'm like doing this like theme, and he was like, oh, that's really cool. He actually gave me the idea for my item for part of my story, and it was just so cool. So I can't wait because he actually doesn't know. I told him, but I don't think he actually like knows because it's been like the summer has like happened and stuff. So I can't wait to get into the fall and be like, hey, your idea is in this anthology. So I love how stories come to be.
I've only actually read one. I'm very tempted just to get them as the emails.
I had a minute the other like
But
a couple weeks ago. Like
I'm like,
I just
desperately want to read them all, but like I should wait.
I got so curious after reading Ben Shankman's, which was awesome, and then yeah, I read Saffron's. I'm totally blanking because I've been reading all of our anthology stories too, and I'm like pretty close to being like over halfway at like 17 stories. I'm trying to remember who the other person I read was. I can't remember. If it was like Chris from Bearded Book Beasts or Michael Vadney. I read somebody else's because I just like needed something. I needed a palate cleanser, between finishing all these different books for reviews and stuff. So yeah, I read somebody else's. I'll have to look it up and see who it was. It was really good. Like it was awesome. So that's like Matthew and I were talking. I was like, I can't wait to read everybody else's stories. But I was trying to wait because I was like, I'm gonna back it myself to get the book and stuff and to help us out. So yeah, I'm trying to leave it as a surprise. I'm really interested in your story now, though, so it's gonna be really hard to sit back and wait. Luckily, luckily, I'm really busy before September 1st with a bunch of stuff. So hopefully, I will get into Discord and read everybody's right off the bat. But that's really funny. Well, when it comes to writing interesting characters, like you just mentioned, what do you focus on the most and why?
I think I just try and spend some time with the character before writing the story a lot of the time. I did that a lot with Hypochondria, I did that with a story. With cat food, there's three main characters, the three cats. Um, and I spent quite a lot of time trying to work out who they were individually before coming into it. One thing I like to do when I'm writing sometimes, especially with dialogue, I'll sit there and I'll do voices. And normally that sort of helps not only with the flow of the dialogue, but also like, is this actually what that character would say? And I don't know. I have to know who I'm writing before I can write. I can't just go in blind.
Yep, I totally get that. Yeah. I've been doing like D&D character sheets almost, like just little mini ones. Like I have a military sci-fi I'm trying to get into another friend's anthology for their publishing company, and yeah, I was like trying to write and I couldn't. I was like, I need to know who these people are. I know it's only like 7,500 words, but yeah, I go nowhere if I don't know at least who they are and like some sort of motivations. Like obviously something new or change stuff over time, but I need at least like some sort of starter set. So I
I
totally get
tried that.
that.
It doesn't work for me. It's
Mm.
really weird. I always thought that when I started trying to write like professionally, that's what I would like, have these sheets. They just don't work for me. Feel like I need to be inside their head rather than know everything about them, if that makes sense.
No, no, yeah. Do you like kind of write a little bit about them, like even if it's not for the story, like because that's like
I
Brandon Sanderson does. So
I
just kind
like
of do.
make notes.
Got it.
Like, but I always sort of see it as like you're meeting a new friend or a new person, and so they sort of reveal, like, for instance, in my Rings of Adventure story, I know that Sarsen was run out of Stockholm. I know that terrible things happened, and I've alluded to it, but I don't know fully exactly what happened. I don't really, it's like that hasn't come yet because I don't know him well enough yet,
Yeah, yeah.
if that makes sense.
No, no, yeah, it
Don't
totally
really know
does.
how to explain it. When I try and say this to people who aren't writers, they look at me like I'm mad. It's like maybe I am mad. I talk to the people in my head. Like,
Well, I had somebody the day that like we were discussing. I had an author, and we were discussing that where like a character for me in my epic fantasy like was like, yeah, I'm not in this book, and I'm like, yeah, you are. I just wrote you in 70,000 pages or whatever, 78,000 pages. I was like, this doesn't make sense. I was like, it's a 600-page book or whatever. She's like, no. And then the guy with her was like, in like her scenes, like her counterpart was like, yeah, I'm not in this either. And I was like, you guys are really starting to piss me off. And then after that, I had like two new versions of them came in, like, actually, we're in this book. So I checked with my friends and I was like, they knew what I was. I was like, what sounds better? A or B? Like these new people want in this story. They're like, oh man, they are going to make it so much better. So I had to change it. And anytime I talk to most people about that, they're like, "Oh, your character, like your Monster Hunter, like he wasn't talking to me for a while. And then he was talking to me." And after I watched some media and stuff like Jack Reacher or Tracker, like the TV show, and he'll tell me like, "Oh yeah, I'm like this," or "I had this situation," or something similar. So people look at me all the time that are not writers or authors or creatives, and they're like, "What are you talking about?" I'm sure they want to, make some phone calls or something. But that's like my creative process is like, subconsciously they just like kind of chat with me and figure it out. So I think that makes total sense. And I always tell people this is a journeyman's podcast, as I like to say. So I think go, like you said, that doesn't work for you. I think find exactly what works for you guys and then go with that and then try and find those things. And I think that's what's hard when you're first starting out, right? You're trying everything that everybody says, and some things work, some things don't. And over time, maybe you'll find something different. So I think that's actually, Sarah, really, really valuable advice. So that's awesome.
and do voices.
Yeah, I do voices. Actually, somebody I just interviewed on Monday. I interviewed three people on Monday and Friday, so I can't remember who said it, but they said they do that a lot too. They like will read, yeah, in one voice, and they're like, yeah, I'm not very good at different characters. But I think it was MJ Coon. We had our second interview. It's been years, and she was like one of my first ones in season one. So yeah, we discussed that. She's like, just make sure no one's around. I'm like, that's fair. No audiobook coming soon in her voices, guys, is what she said. But yeah, I totally get that. Now, have you had any particular inspirations, for your writing in general, or stories or characters from other forms of media, whether it's like songs, art? I know art really speaks to me a lot, particularly if it's like character art or scene, whether it's fantasy, sci-fi, stuff like that. Is there anything like that that you're like, yeah, this was really cool, and I turned this into a story because of X, Y, and Z, or a character?
I mean, apart from like the sort of Mike Flanagan, Edgar Allan Poe connection with Mrs. Liberius, I don't think there's anything as like overt. But I find that I'm really inspired by things like Inside Number Nine, which is a British comedy horror like anthology series. I've watched that over and over again. I love that. And I'm very lucky because obviously in the UK, I live in South London, so I've got access to some incredible museums. All of our national museums are free. So like I can like I was having a writing session up London the other week, and I was like, oh, it's not working today. I need to be inspired. I'll just pop into the National Gallery. And so I don't think it's necessarily like I'm inspired by one thing. I think I'm inspired by, because I'm able to go into these places just whenever I want. I was in the Tate Britain like yesterday, just going for a
Cool.
wander around. I've been so lucky to be able to like take in so much art. I was brought up around so much like art and creativity and history as well. So I think because I was given that foundation, particularly by my parents, and now also because it's so accessible in London, I've just been able to soak so much up. There's been so many times I've been like, I have a specific thing in mind and I can't think of it, and then I'll end up at a museum. I'll be like, that's it. Like it just sort of like worms its way in, you know.
Yeah. I totally get that because my wife and I went right before we got married to see our friend in Philadelphia. And my wife's like, "Yeah, let's go." Like, I'm really into Rocky, the movies and stuff, and the soundtrack. Like, it's one of my favorite like storylines and sets of characters. So she's like, "Yeah, let's go to the Rocky Steps, and we'll go to the museum, the Philadelphia Art Museum." I'm like, "Yeah, sure." So we go and take all the pictures and everything, and we had a couple hours before our concert or whatever. So we literally like went in and we were looking and we're like, why would anybody need a weekend pass to do this museum? Let me tell you, everybody, you need a weekend pass to do that museum justice. It was like the sword collection alone was amazing. Like I have gotten so many ideas just from the things in that museum in particular, and I actually put the whole museum into my short story in Arcane Awakenings. Like it was like had that much of an impact. So I totally get it. There's my friend had that with like this one place that he found near them, like just like out in the woods, right? Like it was one of those just like spiritual centers as he calls it. And yeah, so I think anytime you can find something like that, find what inspires you, and I think from there, milk it for all it's worth and its joy, and right, and have some fun with it. And writing, I think, just makes it doubly fun. So jealous, Sarah, that you, you guys have the National Museums for free now. So that's really cool. I'm trying to wait till my son's a little older and then come over for a summer because I have so many friends in the UK who are like authors and creatives, and I just want to just spend like a couple weeks just doing everything. So really
You def
jealous.
we are very fortunate in the UK. And it's like so like literally you throw a stone in London, you've hit a museum. Like you've hit
My
the
kind of place.
like, I went to one of the hospitals once and I was like, oh, there's a Florence Nightingale museum here. I guess I'll go in. Like
That's cool. That's super cool. That's like my aunt's like one of her like most influential like people to her. So yeah, she would definitely be down for that. So I'll have to tell her. They went to Ireland recently, last year for my cousin's wedding. But yeah, they were trying to do a little bit more there, but it just didn't work out like timing wise and stuff. But yeah, that's super cool. I'll have to tell her that. So when she goes back that way, she'll have to check that out. That's super cool. Now, in terms of, I know we're winding down on time here, but I can't have a horror author on here and not ask this type of question. So, if you were placed in one horror film, game, movie, or story, which one would be the most terrifying and why?
but that is easy. That is easy. There is an indie author called Janelle Sheikhy who I admire very much, and I've read a couple of her books. But her most recent one is called Spider, and
Mm.
everyone was raving about it when the arcs came out, and I cannot read it because I'm horrifically arachnophobic.
Oh,
And everyone's like, "Oh, it's so good, you're gonna love it," and I can't read it because I will have a panic attack. I went to Australia a few years ago, and my friend and I went to the wildlife park, and there was a huntsman there, and it was like genuinely the worst thing I've ever seen. And
yeah.
I've seen some stuff, you know, but a giant spider, that was the worst thing.
I totally get it. Everybody's laughs at me. I got attacked by two non-lethal snake like species and whatever, and as a kid. But man, like when you're 4 years old and there's like a 6 foot snake and she's pregnant and she's really mad, like all you have is a wiffle ball bat to protect yourself. Like it's very terrifying, guys. I've tried all sorts of therapy. I've tried like holding them and doing the thing and like all sorts of things. It's just I'm like, nope, we just stay away from each other now. And anytime there's like, I actually did not become an archaeologist because all the archaeologists I spoke to, I said, well, you guys, I laughed. I go, well, you guys don't see that many snakes, do you? They're like, dude, they're everywhere where we go. So I was like, I'm going into history and teaching kids in a classroom instead. So I totally get it, Sarah. That like new Paul Rudd movie with whoever he was with, I was like, with the big snake. My friend's like, this is amazing. I was like, yeah, it's just not my thing. My son was holding like a 6 foot python a couple of years ago as like a 1.5 year old. He was like helping the snake man and stuff. So I was teasing my wife. I was like, text her. I was like, is he really mine? So yeah. Spiders, I'm like not quite there, but I totally get it. Like they're like like if I just hop over, I could totally hop on board with that for you, Sarah, and I totally understand that. They're just one of those that's interesting. I'm gonna have to check that out though because I have not heard of that book or authors. So the algorithm has not been kind to this guy, and I've been looking for everybody everywhere under all the rocks and things. So yeah,
I'd
it's been
recommend
hard to get stuff. So what do you
the
say? Sorry.
Clat- I'd recommend the Clatterman.
Ooh, okay. Clatterman. God, all right.
I can't vouch for Spider, but I can vouch for the Clatterman.
That's good to know. My friend did tell me about that. I can't remember if Saffron and I talked about that too off air or not, so I'll have to check that out. So, my buddy, he's like, "You're gonna start writing some paranormal stuff?" I was like, "I don't know." Like that movie Spectral, that was on Netflix years ago. I loved kind of what they did with it, so I was like, "Oh, it might be kind of fun to do something like that." There were a couple other movies that came out that time that seemed really neat. So I don't know. Maybe guys, maybe you'll see me in one of the subgenres here one of those days. But well, Sarah, this has been great. I really appreciate it, and I know we have some limited time here, but I want to make sure because I know you said you had quite a bit going on, which is amazing, and I always love that for our authors and creatives on here. So we'll end with that last question. Do you have any news updates or current projects, anything like that you could share with us before we head out for the day?
I have so many. I'm going to try not to
Awesome.
take too much time.
Oh no, go
So,
right ahead. Yeah.
I mean, a new anthology with which is headed up by Myth Mount Press, Vanessa from Myth Mount Press. It's called The Uncanny and Uncouth. It's primarily based on Substack right now. We are looking for ARC readers. So if you fancy reading stories in a speculative anthology, we've got horror, we've got sci-fi, we've got fantasy. They're all kind of a bit of a blend of each other, I think. Mine seem to be sci-fi horror for that. We are looking for ARC readers, and it will be coming. The ARC form, I think, opens in September, and the anthology should be coming out in October, which would be really fun. I have the selection box with Saffron. Our next one will be in October, and it's a really fun little online open mic, which we've had so much of a great time with that. You just get to come and find your new favorite indie author, which is so much fun. I've literally just set it up because I want people to read their stories to me. If you want to be on that, we've got one coming up in October, we've got one coming up in January. Please contact me and we will talk about getting people on. And lastly, me and Saffron have got another collaboration coming out. We are doing a film analysis podcast called
Oh, that's
Anatomy
cool.
of a Horror Film. The first one is out on the 10th of August, and we're talking about The Descent, which is a movie that I absolutely love. And my background's in film analysis, and so I'm really excited to just talk about character motivations and lighting and cinematography and all of this things. And that's going to be a monthly podcast where we're dissecting our favourite films.
That's awesome.
And of course, if you want to buy some books, look, oh, they're so not such nice books, you know. Like,
Do it. Do it,
yeah,
guys. Do it. And then don't forget to review all of the products that you're reading. And I've also talked about listening to or watching too, because we've had some authors, directors, we've had audio narrators on here before, we've had some artists, those kind of things. Reviewing products helps everybody, no matter who they are and where they're at, particularly in this crazy algorithm time. So if you guys can continue to focus on that as our audience, it'd be really, really great. Sarah's book and social links, all those things will be down in the description, so check those out. You can also follow our pre-launch link for Rings of Adventure Anthology. Again, that drops September 1st. Absolutely amazing authors in there. I was so slammed. I was like, I have to be in this anthology. It was because, really of the authors. I thought the theme was cool too, but it was really the authors. I was like, this is going to be something really special. And the stories I read, it has been something really special. So help us to make that a reality, and we'd really appreciate that. Sarah, thank you so much for coming on today. I really appreciate your time, and I cannot wait to read your story. Not a problem. Not a problem.
I've had a
Anytime.
really good time.
It's awesome. I can't wait. We'll have to get something with Saffron where it's like something, what a movie I would totally be down for that at some point and do some sort of analysis there. So yeah, keep me in the loop there. Definitely going to be checking that out. So I can't wait. Well, Sarah, you have a great rest of the day. And, if there's anything else you need in the meantime, please just let me know. Okay.
I will do, thank you.
Perfect. And to our audience, thank you guys so much for checking us out. Please don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to check out Sarah and Saffron's new podcast, as well as Saffron's podcast, Booked. Really hope you guys have a great rest of the day. And as always, happy reading, my friends. We'll see you guys later. Bye.